Welcome back to our second part of our class introduction. And the first question we need to address is why even do this class? Why have an athletic training pedagogical studies class or an athletic training education class in this graduate program? Why do this? It's not a educational competency required by the NETA, so why even do this class? I think for several reasons. For me, is because I knew it was an area that I wanted to learn more about when I was a graduate student, specifically how to teach in athletic training. But as I've been a college professor now for since 1998, so it's been a while, I just remember the very first time I taught. I taught as part of my graduate assistantship. I had to teach a 10-week care and prevention of athletic injury class. I had no training, didn't know how to teach at all, didn't know how to develop a course, didn't know how to develop a syllabi. I didn't know what the heck a learning objective was. All I knew how to do is model the class after previous professors in the teaching style that I enjoyed. And that's all I did. And I probably continued doing that for quite a while in my teaching. The sad thing is the master's program that I was in was on curriculum and instruction, but I didn't take to heart what I was being taught in that master's degree. Then when I started my doctoral program, which we also did teaching, I took some teaching courses. That's when the light started going on, and I started reading the higher education literature on how we should teach. And so my teaching started to change, and it's continually been changing over the years. And more recently, I took a sabbatical, which is what that means is I took time away to learn how to teach some more. But I did some research in a specific area of study, and one of the classes I took was teaching and learning in higher education at Azusa Pacific University. And I modeled some of this class, and I'm using some of the class material from that class. So I'll try to give credit where credit is due in the presentations, and so you know where some of this information is coming from is from that particular class for this class. Again, why? Why do this material? Why study how to teach? We're not teachers, we're clinicians. To me, it was because I think that we all teach. We either teach in a formal way, which this class is going to address, which the formal teaching would be in a classroom setting, like you're in right now in our program, but it also can be in the clinical environment where you're teaching a athletic training student, or it can be a patient. You're doing some formal teaching. Or you're doing non-formal teaching, which is when maybe some of you've had this happen. I have it happen quite a bit. You're in sports medicine. My back hurts. Can you help me understand why my back hurts? My knee hurts, blah, blah, blah. That's informal teaching. You still are teaching. So we do a lot of teaching as athletic trainers. And there is the correct way and incorrect way. I don't know if that's the right term, but I'm just going to use that for teaching. So that's why I think this class is important, and this is why I think that this class will be beneficial to you, even if you're not right now a formal teacher. You're more you're a clinician, and that you're teaching your patients, and you're teaching, maybe even teaching some future athletic trainers. So if you have your syllabus, you'll see that in the first page of the syllabus I have some information about the big question for our class, our big questions for our class. I have a lot more questions listed in the syllabus than I have here on this slide, but this is the primary question, and all other questions that I have listed in the syllabi are driven to answer this main question. So the main question for our class is, how do we design athletic training classes for optimal student engagement, motivation, and learning? That's what I hope that we can get to at the end of our 6 weeks together, is how do we do this? How do we design our classes So students will be engaged, not bored, not falling asleep. They don't care. We want students to be engaged. We'll call that deep learning or deeper learning in the presentation here in just a bit. How do we keep our students motivated to want to learn? We'll talk about what's called self-determination theory. And there's going to be some other theories, but I'm primarily using a thing called self-determination theory. And one of the reasons why you will see later we'll have some choice assignments is because I want to give you the choice and some of the assignments that you do. And then how do we design our classes so students will learn? I mean, that's why we teach, is hopefully students will learn. And not only will they learn for the test, we want learning so they'll remember this stuff down the road and be able to recall and use and apply and analyze the material down the road. So some of the things I want to just talk about up front is from our textbook, what the best college teachers do. What are my main takeaways? What are the things that when I have read this book a couple times, what have I learned? What do I try to use? Another way to look at this is what are the so what from your reading. That's some of the things that you should do when you're reading. How does this apply? How can I take this away? How can I use this material as a teacher, and not only just as in this class, but for your other classes in this program? Now, one thing you should realize that this class is a bit different than every other class in the program because I have combined two groups of students. I have the students that are ending our program, they're completing our program with this semester, and then we have students that are beginning our program this semester. So we have a combined group. So one thing I may do is ask the students completing our program to give the new students advice for being successful in our graduate program. But we'll see how that goes. All right, so some of my takeaways. This is from Bain, the Bain book, What the Best College Teachers Do. And as you can see, the first bullet point is focus your class on big questions, big ideals. That's why I'll have questions throughout our class. What are we trying to answer here? What are we trying to get to? What's the main point of this class? Again, our class, big question is how do we design our classes for optimal learning, motivation, and student engagement? We'll talk just a bit. What is deep learning? So we want to design our classes so students aren't just doing superficial learning, which means you can cram for a test, pass the test, and forget it, never remember. We want to promote learning where students are changed. We'll use a term that came from our Bible verse. And then the first one is they're transformed in their learning and their understanding, in their values, the way they think, the way they act. That's what we really want to do when we're designing courses. We'll talk about in our class to promote learning goals where we want, and I want you as the student in this class, but as you as a teacher, to promote learning goals which our students aren't just trying to pass a test. I'm just trying to add up some points so I can get a certain grade. We want the students to want to learn, to have this material in their life for the rest of their life. So students just don't see it as just a box to check and to get done. And we do that by tying the material that we're going over in our class to areas of interest for the student. And I'm hoping that I'll do that in this class. Is what are your areas of interest in this particular topic? Hopefully, and since this is a master's program, that the material is already an area of interest for you, then we can make it even more specific to areas of interest for you. The next area is with doing grading. I don't even like grading, to be honest with you. I'd rather not have to give you a grade. I'd rather not have to do anything. I don't mind reading your papers and giving you feedback, but the tediousness of, well, this paper is an 80 out of 100. Just the whole point value, and assigning you an arbitrary grade, to me is not the best method. I don't even think we should have grades. Classes should be pass fail, credit no credit. You either get it or you don't get it, and it's mastery. You should master the material. I should give you more opportunities on assignments. Sometimes that just doesn't work in a 6-week course, and that's one disadvantage of us having an accelerated grad program, is that sometimes we can't have a mastery approach at times. And I don't like that. It's just unfortunate. That's just the way it is. But I don't like it. I'd rather give you opportunity to redo assignments several times, so you can be successful, because isn't that the goal, is that you master the material? I just don't pile on for things. Other takeaways from the Bain book is get to know you. I should know you well and know what your areas of interest are, and that's some of the reasons why I'll be doing some of the forums in this class. We'll talk about that. I should not only know you, the student, I should also know my topics very well. It's my responsibility to be prepared to teach. And one of the things that Bain talks about in his text is that excellent teachers view their class preparation as just as important as their scholarship. Now, on the university and college level, that is a critical statement, because a lot of times at the college level, university level, in order to get tenure and be promoted as a college professor, you have to do scholarship, which is journal article writing, publishing, presenting at national conferences, getting grants, and all those type of things. So what Bain is saying is that the excellent college professors are doing those things, but they also see that preparing to teach and teaching is just as important as those scholarship activities, and that's a big thing in the higher ed area. The excellent teachers also expect students to learn and grow through the experience. Again, that's the transformation of a student in their way they think. They think and they act in the area in their discipline, but they also think beyond just their area of their discipline. One of the reasons why this master's program is a master's of arts is we're trying to have our students think more globally and broadly than just, it is kinesiology, but also more broadly. And even with us as athletic trainers, thinking beyond just athletic training, but thinking about some of the areas that we've talked about in our kinesiology area and in sports and beyond. I hope that I can create a learning environment in this class, and not only just in this class, I hope as the program director that I promote learning environments where we can learn together. That's one of the reasons why we do so many forums in this graduate program. If this was a face-to-face class, we would do a lot of class discussions, so we can help one another, build trustful, meaningful relationships with one another, and come to a point where I quote unquote am the expert, but we all are peers, and we're all learning together. I hope I can guide you down the path, but I trust each one of you. I understand that each one of you is an expert. Some of you have maybe taught longer than me, have more teaching experience than me, and then some of you have never taught before or have very little teaching experience. Doesn't mean that we can't learn from one another. We're here to help each other learn and get to the point of answering that question and the other questions too, so you'll be a better teacher by the time you're done teaching this or taking this class. This last bullet point I wish I was better at, which is developing more elaborate evaluation methods. I'm trying some new things in this class, so we'll see how those work, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I get to the actual syllabus, talking about some of the assignments. But it shouldn't just be, you get 1,000 points and you get an A. It needs to be a little bit more elaborate and richer way that we determine if you have learned anything through the class. Again, we're trying to get to mastery. You have mastered the topics that we're trying to get to. I'm going to talk about one other text. You're not required to buy or anything like that, but it's a book that I thought Marilla Savinsky, if that's how you say it, she does an excellent job. This is really educational psychology, and she takes probably the leading educational theories and describes what they mean, and then this is how you can apply it in the higher ed or post-secondary classroom. Some of these repeat from, supports a lot of things that Bain discusses in his book. So one of the things she says is connect old material that you know to new material. We have to have that bridge from what we already know and learn it, tie it to something new. So I hope I can do that through this class, is connect what you already know to new things. In our brain, that just works better. I also hope that I can provide examples that are concrete, not abstract. What I mean by concrete is that they're examples from real life. They're not examples from some abstract type thing. So when I'm talking about teaching, I'll try to use examples of my own teaching, things that I've experienced, things that worked well, and sometimes things that didn't work well through the class. The last bullet point is what I have done with the big question, which is focus class on big ideals that are areas of your interest. In this first week in this class, I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I'll talk about what I call low risk assignments, where I'm just trying to get you to give me some information about yourself, so we can have a dialogue about areas that some things that you're interested in. What do you want to learn about in this class? What experience do you have in teaching? It's common sense that we're going to learn more in things that we're interested in than things that we're not interested in. So I hope I can help by having you do assignments that are going to answer. They're going to be very specific on specific topics, but then you have some choice within those assignments. So you can focus the assignments in areas that you are interested in.